Miami, 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 Miami. It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the EP Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, producer and co-founder Brian Goins. Debut of his season. Hi, Brian.
Yeah, it's like what, a third of the season? I'm finally making my first appearance.
Technically a quarter. We just passed. We did the quarter review. We passed 500 episodes. Lots happened.
Yeah, I wasn't even there for that episode.
Hangover time doesn't exist anymore. I don't know if you heard about that.
What else has happened since my disappearance?
No hangover time. So that's gone.
Did we get Damian Lillard?
Damian Lillard is a Milwaukee Buck.
What?
Joe Cronin is never seeing heaven. Drew Holiday's a Celtic. I don't know if you heard about that. He's a Celtic. I don't know if you heard about that. The Heat have some Mexican player who's really good. He's like the Hispanic guy in Miami right now. So shout out to that rookie. Tyler hasn't played basketball with Bam and Jimmy in what feels like an eternity. Duncan Robinson's good again.
He's back.
He's back. Brian, I don't know if you know this. Duncan Robinson, and this is fact. He took Giannis off the dribble in isolation and scored.
In the playoffs, right?
No, in the regular season. Yeah, in the regular season.
That was this year.
So that happened. And chat, you can help me if you have other memories of this season, but you've missed a lot. They're okay. I think they're okay. Are they good? I don't know. We're going to discuss that today together with chat. I don't know if they're good. I watched that game against the Hornets yesterday, Brian, and I came away thinking, I don't know if this team's very good. Jimmy went off script, started fouling indiscriminately without Spo's permission, which, by the way, I'm a fan of that strategy.
Well, I saw the quote. Yeah, he started fouling because something happened last year against the Celtics with Jaylen Brown making some CAG 3, and then he's like, that's never happening again. I'm going to always foul when we're up 3 so that they never have a chance to tie the game.
Twitch chat says I should be a Subway spokesperson. I hope you mean...
Yeah, man. I haven't seen you in person or on camera in a few months. You're looking slimmer, man.
That's right. You haven't seen me in person. I've lost 40 pounds, Brian.
Dude, you look good.
I lost 40 pounds. I'm gunning for 50 by the end of the year. I have another... I don't think I'll make it, but, I want to get to... to a certain weight, and I need 7 more pounds to kind of reach my goal. So hopefully I can get there by...
You're taking that Heat Beat culture very seriously.
Listen, we're a Heat culture around here. Kyle Lowry, by the way, also kind of good again. That's another surprise. He's like one of the league leaders in 3-point percentage. That's crazy. Nobody had that on their agenda.
Do you have a Kyle Lowry poster in like your weight room somewhere that you use as motivation?
I don't. I just think of him.
So I need to get you one.
I would love one. He's shooting 42% from 3. But I kind of wanted to talk about with Brian, how do are they good? Because last time we did a show, we kind of did like a quarter season review. But I want to ask the question: are they good? Are they good? Because there's been a lot of talk that they're the deepest team that they have and all that. Brian, I don't know if I agree with that assertion that this is the deepest team that Jimmy's had.
So what's the grading scale here? What's the rubric? Because I feel like if you're talking deepest team, is that just 1 through 15? You're counting what, the 10-man rotation more in that like mix, or you're kind of like thinking more about like what the playoff rotation could look like? I feel like it can go 3 different ways. My answer on this, between at least like this question. Jimmy Bam build. Personally, if I'm going like team I'm sending to the playoffs right now, I'm still picking the 2020 finals team.
That's crazy because my pick would be the 2022 team that made that lost game 7. That to me is the deepest. And I say that because they actually had their depth tested and they were the 1 seed. They had all these injuries all throughout the year, right? Everybody was down at some point for extended. That was the season. That was Bam. That's when Bam hurt his hand on the rim. Do you remember? And he was out for a long time. Jimmy missed a lot of time.
He was
Kyle
out for
missed
like
some personal
a
time.
month and a half, I think. Yeah.
All these guys missed a ton of time. And they got the 1 seed because guys like Gabe Vincent broke out that year. PJ Tucker was having maybe one of his best offensive seasons. Max Strus broke out that year. You had Duncan Robinson still contributing at a high level before he kind of descended. Victor Oladipo, right? You had Caleb Martin his first year, and he played very, very well. Obviously, you got the best version of Kyle Lowry that this team has had. You had Tyler Hero in a 6 man of the year role coming off the bench. You had Jimmy and Bam. You had good Dwayne Dedman. And you also had guys like Kyle Guy, like coming in and like helping them for like 5 games. You had guys like Markieff Morris.
That was the COVID year where we had like almost unlimited like two-way options coming in and out. Because we had Kyle Guy playing minutes for us. We had like Nick Stauskas for like a little stretch of time. I remember him.
Yeah, they had
Mario Chalmers for like a day.
He didn't play though. He's not on the Basketball Reference. Not. Oh, they had Yurtseven, the Yurtle. Shout out to Christian. So
what's he been up to? You know what?
I don't know where Yurtseven is. Is he?
I know he's a Jazz. Has he played?
Yes, he has. He's played 16
I was
games
looking
this
up
year.
Basketball Reference.
4.7 points and 3.4 rebounds. Brian Chat says
he had 18 points against the Lakers on November 21st.
Chat Smita Smolnik says Brian and Walter Mercado have the same barber. Can you hit them with a mucho, mucho, mucho amor and do the kiss? Do you know the Walter Mercado?
Isn't that he died, right?
Pablo, can you please get a clip of Walter Mercado?
I know who he is. He's like the horoscope guy.
Pablo, producer, yes. Can you hit chat with a mucho amor, and then when you say amor, blow a kiss with both hands?
I'm not doing that.
Do that for the chat.
Pay $5 and maybe I'll do it.
Guys, if somebody subs, Brian will do it, and then we can clip it. So that's on your mind. So you go with the 2022 with the 2020 team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have to think about it also. Like, if we're just talking about the playoff rotation, because that's what I'm grading this on. Like, Goran, man, like he's the difference maker to me against any of these Heat teams. I just think he was that player that they're still looking for. They haven't found that replacement since that 2020 finals team to really lift the pressure off of both Bam and Jimmy. Jimmy didn't have a crazy finals run that year, and they literally almost made it.
He was crazy in the Bucks.
He had like one good game in the Bucks series, which was game 1. The rest were like his average typical Jimmy games, but they were nothing like his Bucks series games this past playoffs.
He was nuclear
but he went nuclear, which was in the finals, and I think what really helped Miami potentially make that upset. Honestly, if they were fucking healthy, they would have won. They would have beat the fucking Lakers. I still believe that
no doubt in my mind. Yeah,
but the reason why I still project that was a better Heat team is because Jimmy was able to pull off that performance because he was healthier and was able to like save some of that, Jimmy wonderful like performances towards the end of that playoff run rather than trying to milk it all in the beginning. And I think that's that's part of the reason why they didn't have enough juice against the Nuggets. And even against the Celtics, like towards the end, like they were running out of gas and they barely beat them despite they were up 3-0. Like each of those last 4 games they played against the Celtics were tough on them. And I think part of it is because Jimmy was like running out of gas and they didn't really have enough. I didn't think they had enough depth last season to really push it more than what they were able to do. Definitely not the year before, because obviously like shit happened with Kyle Lowry being hurt. And then obviously Duncan had a bad year. Hero was out too for most of that time in the playoffs, and he didn't even look that healthy. 2020 though, to me, was like the Heat team that it had most of the pieces there for you, minus maybe like an extra like big man off the bench. That's probably the one piece they were still missing because they were still relying on guys like Myers Leonard,
redacted,
who should not be named. And then obviously they were still playing guys like
in the finals.
Yeah, and then also they were still playing Andre Iguodala heavy minutes too. So, I mean, I don't know. I still like that team just because of like that starting rotation the most. I did like that starting rotation as a group, but this year's Heat team has better bench players. I just don't like the starting rotation as much.
That's a great point. So if we look at
bendiga a todos hoy,
as-
mañana y siempre. Y que reciban de mí
so weird
siempre
for the audio listeners.
paz, mucha paz, pero sobre todo mucho, mucho, mucho ¿qué? Amor.
Brian does that for a sub. For a sub. A nominal fee. You give a sub and Brian does that. That's business, baby. That's
Why does
fucking-
he say that? Why is he saying that again?
That's a horoscope. Chat not knowing who Walter Mercado is. That's how I know you're not from Miami. That's how I know that our audience, we've left the public domain. That's
Why
Walter
couldn't we?
Mercado.
Why couldn't somebody
Fucking
make a
legend.
Sabro Gigante joke? I rather prefer that.
That's a South Florida.
Y
legend.
fuera.
So that 2020 team, before we kind of move on to this team, you had guys, you had Bam, Jimmy, you had Jay Crowder, you had Goran, you had Tyler, UD, Solomon Hill, our GOAT, Andre Iguodala, Derek Jones Jr., Myers Leonard, Kendrick Nunn, Kelly Olynyk, Kelly was there. Duncan, Gabe Vincent,
That's the other pick that we were relying on.
Dion Waiters for a little bit.
And Kelly barely played some stretches in that. That was such a weird postseason run for
Yeah.
Miami because they went like 8-man always. Like basically after that first round, the Bucks series, they pushed it to 9 by playing Kendrick Nunn some minutes, and he sucked so bad that they brought it down
It was
to
against
8.
Boston.
And they only played 8 basically all the way up until the finals, and then obviously they had to expand that their bench more because both Bam and Goran got hurt.
They played Bam, Jimmy, Jay, Gogi, Tyler, Solomon Hill, Andre Iguodala.
Solomon Hill was like the 9th man. He played like 5 minutes every game.
Duncan played.
Series. That was hilarious.
And Olynyk played, and that's 9. You take out Olynyk and you take out Solomon Hill, that's 7-man. It was just the starting 5, and then Tyler plus Iguodala.
I'm telling you, man, that team, that starting rotation.
I don't think that's that. I don't think that
so
depth.
Good.
They
had the juice.
I think that they had 3 playable guys off the bench, 2.5 playable guys off the bench. I think Solomon Hill gave them good minutes, but I don't think
they should have played Kelly more.
I think they should have played Kelly more, but I think that Spofield, he couldn't survive. That 22 team, I just felt that they had more guys to play. They could play Jimmy, Bam, Dedmon, Tyler, Kyle, Caleb. That's already 6. Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, and Gabe Vincent.
They didn't play Duncan, though, but they didn't play Duncan.
They didn't play Duncan, but he could play. But they were at 8 because Duncan, that wasn't a bad Duncan year. Duncan fell off the year after that.
And he had that one good game against the Hawks, and then they kind of just kept him on the bench until they really needed like a spark. Like they were down, like there were a couple blowouts against the Celtics. I remember in that 7-game series where they started playing him, hoping that they can get some 3-point shooting because they couldn't hit any of their threes that series.
Oladipo also, he was contributing that playoff run, especially when Kyle got hurt. Oladipo really slipped in. So that to me, that's like 9 to 10 guys that you can count on. Dedmon, let's take Dedmon out because Dedmon became unplayable at some point in the playoffs. So it's like an 8-9-man rotation that was solid. So then let's go to this year, right? We
didn't do last season.
That team wasn't deep.
No.
I don't think.
They went to the finals. If you want to start comparing these are the 4 teams we're comparing.
Man, last year, let's relive the roster. Bam, Jimmy, Dedmon, Tyler Hero, Highsmith, kind of, Kevin Love, Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, Oladipo, Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent. The problem with that team is that I like that playoff rotation, but those guys, Max and Gabe in the regular season, did not have it. And part of that was injury. Part of that was a lot of things, their explanations, but those guys were just not good for most of the regular season. Duncan was not good for the regular season. Those guys came alive. Kyle was really bad in the regular season. All those guys that's why it's hard for me. In the playoffs, they showed up and they were all like, man, the Heat just play like 8 good fucking basketball players. It was just, it's just hard for me to
Never changes.
Never change. That's why like the 22 team.
G's camera went off, by the way, for the pod audience.
For the audio listener. For the 22 team, they were just good in the playoffs and they were good in the regular season. Like they had that like straight consistency.
They also had Max Strus on Brook Lopez.
And let's chat pointed out, Gabe got cooked by Aaron Gordon, understandably.
too.
Like, poor. That reminds me of when Spo put when Spo put Rodney Magruder on Kawhi, and Kawhi just threw Rodney Magruder around like a rag doll. I felt so bad. I was like, Rodney, no, scavenger.
So the guys that Spo has had to play because they never really had like a solidified front court is amazing. We relied on a Carl White for stretches.
Spo's a magician.
Luke Babbitt was a starting 4.
Luke Babbitt started games for basketball teams here. Luke Babbitt started with Dwayne Wade, I think, didn't he?
Yes.
What a time. Poor Dwayne.
Next to Hassan Whiteside.
Poor Dwayne, bro. So that brings us to this year, Brian. And we can talk about how we feel about their depth this year, but Kyle, Josh, Tyler, Jaquez, that's 4. Butler 5, Martin 6, Highsmith 7, Robinson 8, Adebayo 9, Love 10. There's an argument. Now, I think there's some drop off because Kyle was just better his version in 22 than he is today. I think Bam and Butler's not better, at least so far, but we understand that he's preserving himself. Bam is a much better player, I think. And then we're kind of going into the weeds here. It's like Caleb's better, at this point. And we start to see an argument. You got Jaquez, Jaquez is like really good. Like PJ.
Here's a question. I got a question for you. Mm-hmm. Is this version of Jaquez better than the rookie version of Hero that we got in 2020? That's far.
That's a good question. I mean, so Tyler, his rookie year, I'm looking at some advanced stats. He was plus 1.3 EPM. Jaquez is negative in EPM. So advanced metrics don't love Tyler. So that's actually a very interesting.
Chat saying it's Jaime Jaquez easily.
I don't know.
That's an interesting argument, though.
Tyler was like stripping
Embiid. Why do you say that? No, I'm curious. Chat, why do you say that?
Tyler was stripping Embiid and like hitting game winners. Like that was like a thing that happened his rookie year.
Has Jaime Jaquez had a moment so far this year to like win a game? I guess probably that one. Didn't he have like that one?
He had a big 3. He had a big 3 late. Not like Tyler though. I mean, Tyler was like.
Who was that against?
I also think that Tyler had.
Was that the Wizards or something like that?
No, it wasn't the Wizards. It might have been Memphis.
Oh,
he's had like games. They lost that Buck game, but he was awesome, right? That was like a coming out moment. Also, the Indiana game where they won at home, that was like a huge moment for Jaquez. I don't know if Jaquez. I wouldn't go that far. I do think it's close, but I wouldn't go that far. I think Tyler was like really special as a rookie, and I think Tyler's playoffs performance in the as a rookie was also like, I think that has to factor in, Brian. But I think they have more playable guys by a little bit than the 22 team for me, but I think the 22 guys are all a little better, like top to bottom, given some exceptions. But actually, now that I'm looking at it, it's a lot closer than I think.
Okay.
The 22 team makes a little bit more sense to me on paper because my concern in the playoffs is going to be 2 things. It's going to be Kevin Love, Josh Richardson. I don't think Josh Richardson is going to be.
Do you think Kevin Love is a playable big off the bench still?
That's my concern. I don't know, and I don't think so. And I think that
they started him a lot in the playoffs. They started playing him off the bench in that Nuggets series. And in the Boston series, they started him some games though in the Boston series. So
I worry about
until they put Robert Williams off the bench, then they staggered him. So like, do you think against like this version
of the Boston series?
No, he wasn't. But I'm saying, is there a case to be made that Miami has a better starting rotation against a team like this version of the Celtics with Porzingis starting Horford off the bench than they did last year? Like, do they have a better front court to match up in the playoffs? Because I think that's what's going to matter the most. I think that's the team they still have to deal with. Like, I like Milwaukee, their offensive like upside, but their defense to me hasn't been anything special.
New coach
and I think that's going to be their downfall. No matter like whatever happens with any trades that they may end up making, because I did hear like some rumors that they're looking for perimeter defenders. I think that's going to be like the makeup of that team and that roster construction. Like they did trade the one piece they probably didn't really need to trade to get Damian Lillard. They probably should have just kept this same group, but they did it really to get Giannis to sign the extension, honestly.
Yeah. And listen, they're good. They're going to be one of the two best teams in the East in the playoffs. They're dangerous. I don't doubt that. And I think that
I'm not scared of them though in the playoffs.
I'm not scared of them either, but I think that they're better than like Philly and all these other teams. Like I'm not.
Philly might be the other team just because I do think I like Nick Nurse more as a coach. I can kind of trust that more than I did years past with Doc Rivers.
I agree with that.
I don't know if Spo can like out coach. Like they can be even. They can be a net even in coaching, and I think really has to deal more with like.
I think Spo's an easy win over. I think Spo's
over Nick Nurse.
Yeah, I think Nurse is
like,
a good coach, but I
like
think
a really bigger advantage because there might be still sort of an advantage, but like big enough where I don't know. Say Miami still has the same roster going into that. Do they have enough pieces around their team versus what the Sixers have? I think the Sixers are still the second best team in the East.
I think Nurse is probably a top 3 coach in the East right now. I think it'd be Spo, Carlisle, and him. I just don't think of Thibodeau that way. I just don't think. I mean, Udoka's in the West. He's a really good coach.
I do think Nick Nurse is the second best coach in the East. That's my opinion.
I think I'd go Carlisle right now. I mean, can't argue with what Rick Carlisle's doing in Indiana, but
I don't give a shit about the Pacers right now. They don't play defense.
Fuck the Pacers. They're fun.
Sure, they're scoring. That's fun, but they're not defending any kind of playoff intensity. When it boils down, like you know how it works. No team is scoring 130 in the playoffs every night. It's gonna be like 110 or less each game.
Look at Sacramento last year. I think that was a good, and they were good, right? Like I think Sacramento was better than Indiana this year, but you know, they ran out of juice. But so I worry about Love. Maybe it's a little bit overstated, but I worry a little bit. I don't think Josh is gonna be in the playoff rotation. Come that time, which worries me because they're kind of short of ball handler, but they're not going to play 9-10 guys, right? So the guys who we know for sure are going to play if they're here, it's going to be Jimmy, it's going to be Bam, it's going to be Tyler. Those are 3 locks, right? Those guys are playing for sure. Then we're moving, I think Kyle Lowry as their only point guard is going to play. I think Caleb Martin is I'll save Caleb for later. Kyle
Eastern Conference, he should have won Eastern Conference Finals.
Let's save Caleb for the end because I want to compare him with Josh. So we have the big 3 plus Kyle. Then we have Duncan Robinson, who I think at this point is arguably their 3rd best player. So you got Duncan, that's 5. Haywood Highsmith, 6. Kevin Love, 7. Caleb Martin, 8. And Josh Richardson, 9. And Jaime Jaquez Jr. 10. That's too many guys in the playoffs. So you gotta.
They got a lot more wings than they do of guards. Just listing that off, unless you're playing Caleb and Jimmy more as guards in that sort of rotation. Like, what's their starting rotation in the playoffs? Is it going to be the same one with Haywood Highsmith at the 4? You think?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you brought up the Caleb thing really quick because we talked about this on the after the pod yesterday, which is funny that we decided to make the post game show. But because they have so much wing depth, it's moved Caleb to the guard spot, which I don't think they envisioned. Jaquez being this ready, that squeezes Josh out, Brian, because now Caleb can defend the same guys that Josh can, but better. And that was supposed to be like Josh's thing. But now they're like, well, Jaquez and Highsmith are like really good, so we can move Caleb down a position to fit all their minutes. So in the playoffs, who starts? Obviously,
I think Haywood has to start. Here's my explanation.
I think Highsmith starts until
I think Haywood gives them that extra body around the perimeter. He can switch with Bam at the 5 and hold his own. And honestly, they were winning how many games straight? 8 games straight before he got hurt.
Yeah.
I think there is a winning formula with him as a starter. And in the same way that they were winning games with PJ Tucker as a starter, and he's a better version of PJ. Doesn't mean he's going to score a ton of points. I think he is. I don't think he's going to score a ton of points in the playoffs. He'll have maybe a game like he did against the Nuggets here and there where he scores almost 20. But I like him more as a starter than I do probably Caleb at the 4. I kind of think that experiment's over.
Well, I think you played Caleb at the 4 because he was a guy that could. I really those are not. It was Jimmy at the 4. It wasn't Caleb at the 4. It was Jimmy at the 4. So like that was a misconception thrown around by the fan base, and it's like, well, yeah, Jimmy played the 4, which is I think still their best lineup. I think Jimmy playing power forward to them is 100% their best chance of winning because you could put Bam and Jimmy at that 4-5 spot. You can put a more mobile, switchable, shooty guy at the 3, and then you can play either Caleb at the 2 with Kyle. You could do interesting things. You could play.
You actually reminded me. Do you remember like the end of game? What was it? Game 5 against the Bucks, where they were obviously in Milwaukee and they had that run coming back from however many they were down the fourth quarter. And I remember there was a few possessions towards the end of the game where Jimmy kept telling Bam that, no, I got Giannis on the switch. Don't worry about him, to stay on Brook. And that actually did work for like 2 or 3 straight possessions. And now I'm thinking about it. No, I think you're right. I do think Jimmy at the 4 does work probably
in
more
the playoffs.
In the playoffs. We're not doing this in the regular season because we don't need him to do this in the regular season. But now I am thinking more about it. Like, so how many minutes are you playing Haywood then if you're playing in the playoffs?
And that's kind of where I wanted to get with this like conversation about their depth. I actually, because the other team, like 22 was the example I use, you kind of knew everyone's role, right? And everyone's like, okay, we have like this very easy hierarchy. And Dedmon was the guy that got slashed because you're like, okay, we're just going to play PJ as a backup 5 because he can do it and it works. This is a team that's a lot more complicated to whittle that number down because they have so many overlapping skills and some of them are quite unique. Like Highsmith is not like Caleb or Hawkins. Highsmith is like a guy that you want on the rotation, but I could see Highsmith being like a guy cut out of the rotation when push
he
comes
was
to
cut
shove.
out last year until parts of that Celtics series.
If he can't shoot well enough, they won't keep him. And Hawkins shoots well enough that I think Hawkins is gonna survive. And so it's interesting how they're deep in the regular season. I just think that they have more guys that have like question marks about them. Now, there's a lot of season to play, and I know it's very early to talk about playoffs, but it's just projecting out like their depth. And like a guy like Highsmith has a lot of room to improve this season. A guy like Josh, who has already improved this season. And listen, it's going to be a huge battle throughout the season to see which of those guys earns those 7th, 8th, and maybe even 9th playoff spots. Brian, it's crazy. They're deep.
I think Jaime, I like the way he plays right now. He's one of my favorite players right now. My wife absolutely loves him because he looks like Adam Driver.
He
and
does.
She's in love with Adam Driver, and like she watches all of his movies and TV shows. We watched SNL this last weekend because he was on it hosting. So I'm honestly a big fan of him. I'm still trying to find a fucking Jaime Hawkins shirt for Christmas. I can't find one anywhere on the internet.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't exist. You can buy jerseys, but you can't find a Jaime Hawkins like a jersey, like a not jersey, but like a jersey,
like a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's funny. I didn't know that.
They need to step up their game at the Miami Heat store. Anyway, yeah, they're looking to. What I was going with? Oh, that's great. I love that Photoshop. Was that you that made that? Who made that?
I made that. Yeah, I made that.
That's great. Where I was going with is that my only concern with Jaime, as great as he's been right now, is obviously he's a rookie. There's going to be a rookie wall at some point because these guys they've never played an full 82 game season in their career before. It gets harder as the season continues on. He hasn't played that many back-to-backs, I don't think, at to this stage of his career. They've had so much time off because of this in-season tournament. So at some point, there's going to be a rookie wall he's going to have to face. And my only concern with him is he going to be able to be consistent enough in the postseason with that much mileage on him because he's only played however many games he plays in a college career. I get concerned about that, trusting rookies in the playoffs. I know the Heat have started guys like Kendrick Nunn. They started guys like Tyler Hero, Josh Richardson, and Justice Winslow in the playoffs and trusted them to play, big roles. I hope that Jaime can be, next in line and even better. I honestly, the way he's playing right now, he could play himself into the starting rotation by the end of the year.
I know that Five on the Floor had that conversation the other day on the show. I think it's a little early for that, and I think that they need a little bit of ball handling and scoring juice off the bench with Tyler starting.
But here's my
So
question. Why would you bench Duncan Robinson though if Tyler Hero comes back?
they are.
But I don't think you should.
I don't think so either, but they are.
I think they're gonna have to eventually come to a point where they're gonna have to play Tyler more off the bench. Whether or not it's him starting, but he gets subbed out early.
I think that what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to play. You know what's kind of funny? I think Duncan has been really successful in those Jimmy and Love lineups. I think that they might try to play.
Else.
Huh?
He's like their hub of their offense again, though.
I am curious as to what they do with both their minutes when Tyler comes back. I'm sure that when Tyler gets back, they might have him have with the minutes restriction, but eventually they're gonna have to figure out because those guys I don't think can really coexist together. At least they haven't proven that they
Duncan
can.
and Hero, no, absolutely not.
Maybe they'll figure it out this year, but I just don't have a lot of evidence that they can figure that out. And I think defensively, there's a lot of questions about that. I think particularly this year where they've had some defensive slippage. Part of that is Bam's out for such a long time, but it just feels like Jimmy doesn't have that defensive edge right now. I'm sure that he'll get there. I think Hawkins is a good defender, but he's young. I think Caleb is defending a little bit smaller, which I don't think has the same kind of impact. I think Josh has been a little bit up and down. Highsmith has been out. You're playing a lot of like Duncan and Kevin Love and Thomas Bryan and, Kyle Lowry's lost a step on defense as well. So I think that they have to be careful with how much they can play with their staunch defenders out there. I think it's a little dicey for them. I think ultimately they're going to want to put as much ball handling and defense on the floor as possible. That is the Spoelstra MO. And a guy like Hawkins, I just think makes sense off the bench for them right now. I understand the rush to start him because he's that talented. I think Highsmith makes sense with the starters because he's a guy that doesn't need the ball. He's going to screen. He's going to cut. He's going to spot up. As long as he can hit enough spot ups and he's going to defend his ass off. And I think the best part about him with Jimmy is that he's going to allow Jimmy and Bam to roam a little bit to help because Miami's defense, what makes Miami's defense special is the way that they help. They come with force. They swarm. They recover. They know exactly where to be. And you saw that clip of Andre Iguodala talking about how Spo coaches that, and if you guys didn't see this, I super recommend. Recipes. Yeah, I know. I super recommend you go find it where Andre is talking about how the Heat have different rules for different guys. Like they're like, okay, when Tatum takes his third dribble, we do this. Like his matchups are that ornate. Like the game plans are that that specific.
Intricate.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Intricate. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. And so that's kind of the defense that they have and all that stuff. And Jaime, well, I forgot where I was going with that because I got excited.
I mean, you're saying that he makes more sense to play off the bench.
Yes, because Highsmith can, they want to swarm. Yeah.
Highsmith, I mean, we've seen it. He's done so well against the Celtics in the playoffs as a defender on Tatum and Jalen. So yeah, maybe I do see that more against those kind of matchups. I don't know. I just do think there might be a stretch where they give that starting unit a run in the regular season with Jaime Hawkins out there. Obviously, he's already been closing a lot of those minutes with that starting the unit. So it's not like it's foreign to them to play heavy minutes with him. Like they've done it. Obviously, the fourth quarter hasn't really been their best net rating throughout the course of this regular season. To me, that's one of the factors I also would put in towards making the 2020 team the better version of this Heat team. I know we had that conversation.
They were clutch as fuck.
They were clutch as fuck that year. They were clutch as fuck last year too, because they played so many clutch games in 2023. They haven't been that same clutch team this year. They've blown a lot. Which the complete opposite. They've had big leads, which they never really had last year. They always played close games. They never really blew that many big leads. They usually came back. That was usually their like script was they always came back some point in the third or fourth quarter, and then they made it a close game towards the end, and they just pulled it out. This year, it's the opposite. They're winning games, by double digits in the second, third, or fourth quarter, and giving up those leads like within minutes, like within like a 5-minute span. And it's really because their offense, they just are very stagnant. And the fourth quarter, they play a lot more of a slower pace, and it's contributing to a lot of offensive miscues to the point where I kind of don't trust that half court offense in the same way that I did, in past Heat teams. Can they figure it out? Sure. I mean, obviously Tyler hasn't played for a month. Ban's been out, and then I think Duncan hasn't really played as much as I would have liked, in fourth quarters leading up to this point, especially since Caleb's return. So I don't know.
So-
There's a lot there that like closing unit. They still have to figure that out, especially when Tyler gets back. And I still think, like, in terms of like that starting unit, I kind of feel like they also need to see what is life like with Tyler Hero as a 6-man again.
I don't think they're ever gonna go to that again. It's just not. I just don't. And by the way, chat saying it's a little early to be having playoff rotation discussion.
We're projecting, man.
But we're talking about the depth. We're talking about like this team's depth. We're talking about like how many of these guys are like real depth and how many of them are just innings eaters.
Yeah.
Like, and Brian asked a great question. Depth for what? What counts as depth? What is this? All that stuff. So I think it's like a fruitful conversation. I think that this team has aspirations to not just make the playoffs, but to go far in it and win a title. So I do think it's adequate to talk about like, okay, where do we project their depth and stuff like that? Brian, you talked about their how bad their fourth quarter is. They are one of the worst fourth clutch teams in the league. They're
I saw that Chicago Bulls game. I saw the Knicks game.
They're 26 in clutch net rating. Their offense is one of the worst. Their defense is whatever. And it's weird because they don't turn the ball over in the clutch because they have like they take care of the ball in the clutch, like the third most safe team. So it is funny that their offense, you're right, just totally discombobulated.
It shits the bed. I don't understand it. Other than that, Jimmy takes way too many threes when he doesn't need to.
Yeah, no, it's.
But it's more than that. Like there's more to it than just that. I think they don't really move the ball as much, and it really doesn't help their offense. Really, the ball just sticks, and that doesn't help them because they don't have an isolation scorer right now until Jimmy decides to become one in the playoffs.
Chat says, "Gee, we're here for whatever is on the menu." You're damn right it is. The Heat are 27th in fourth quarter net rating. Their offense has a 105 offensive rating. That is the 28th in the league. Their defense is 20th in the fourth quarter. It's all in the fourth quarter. It's just bad, man. It's just freaking awful. What do they?
Do you think they would consider consolidating some of the depth that they have at the trade deadline?
That's been the conversation that we've all had, but who do you move? Is it?
That's the question, because they don't have a lot of movable contracts for like a smaller player salary. Like if you're thinking somebody like, I don't know, DeMar DeRozan, think, yeah, they could move Lowry, they can move Hero. Not that hard to do that kind of move. But if you're looking more at like a guy like Caruso, it becomes harder because then you have to include Caleb's contract unless you're going to use one of those trade exceptions, which so by all accounts, it doesn't sound like they're going to be doing, just because that tax hit is going to be so expensive, unless they can come with a second move and salary dump somebody else. Which honestly, I don't think you can salary dump Duncan Robinson anymore. I think you need him.
No, Brian, they might have to pay him again.
Yeah.
We're getting to that point.
I think he might be up for an extension after this year.
He has 2 years left on his deal, I think.
Yeah, but I think he's extension eligible with a year left on his contract. They can do an opt-in and then extend, like they did.
Rev up those Friars, Andy Ellisberg, for contracts, because we're about to.
Yeah, he has. I'm saying he has 2 after this year, but after the season, he has a player option, and what the Heat could do is they can do an extend. They can do an opt-in and extend, sort of what they did with Jimmy Butler. He opted into the last year of his deal, and then they extended him 2 years after that, 2 or 3 years after that, something like that.
I would like them to extend him because for one, am a fan of Duncan Robinson, and I like watching players I like. I think that they're going to have a lot of questions about, for example, if they keep Lowry and he expires, what are they going to do with him? How are they going to replace that point guard production? Do you just bring him back? Do you at obviously a severely discounted rate? They have a lot of questions. We're not talking about offseason right now, but
no. But it is question. Like, to me, my question is: are there players on his team that you can let go like guys like Thomas Bryant are like a given. Like they can easily let go of him. They could probably easily let go of Orlando Robinson. They still have Drew Smith's contract that he can use as a trade contract to loop him with somebody else to, make numbers match. But are there guys out there? I mean, I honestly will put Josh Richardson in that mix. He's been traded a bunch of times at the deadline for those kind of moves. He was traded for Derek White.
He's at a minimum though. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
what I'm saying are there guys like that you would loop him in with? I don't know. I'm trying to think what's another guy that they have that's on a higher salary. I mean, Kevin Love. You could loop him with Kevin Love. You can loop him with Jovic and get a guy around a $6 million mark that potentially could be a serviceable backup point guard for you. Could be, I don't know.
I don't think they're trading.
These guys are going to be more like younger players. They're not going to be older.
They're not trading Josh. I think that Spo personally vouching for him to be here, and I just that I don't see happening. I don't see Josh going, and but I can totally see that I kind of deal with, like that you said, just combining one of these minimums with
fuck it, go get Westbrook.
I'm not a big Russ fan. I don't super
at the
love
minimum though, man. They can make it work. It's an easy contract to trade.
I try it, but I just I mean
as
I
a
try
backup,
because it's
you would
so
be a great backup.
low risk. Yeah, I think Caleb is kind of your ticket to getting. Which is kind of complicated.
I just don't know if I would want to trade Caleb for a guy like Caruso anymore. I think a wing's more important in the playoffs
than a backup guard.
And
I think Caruso probably thinks he's a little too good to be a backup guard.
Yep, probably.
I think
he's looking to get paid because he has 1 year left in his contract, but he can. Any team that gets him could easily cut him and save that money, and he's looking for a deal.
Rance Pavero says that Caleb doesn't have much value as an expiring. I think you'd swap with some sort of Western Conference contender, kind of swapping guys to like, hey, you need a wing, I need a guard type thing,
Yeah, but I mean, he has bird rights. That helps.
It does help. So yeah, guys, we kind of talked about their depth. We kind of talked about, are they good? I feel like we hit a lot of topics today. I think that this team has, they have a couple bad teams on the schedule. That's kind of nice. But at the end of the day, we talked about how deep they are and everything. And at the end of the day, we're kind of here scratching our heads. Like, we feel that they should be a little bit better. Obviously, it's hard when you've had so many injuries, and this is always a problem with this team. It's like key guys just keep going down for too long. Like, that never happens to Boston. That never happens to Milwaukee. Well, I guess it does happen in Milwaukee, but it never really happens to like some of these other teams. And you're just like, you feel like the Phoenix Suns were like one guy's out every day. So hopefully they can stay afloat. And I think that they'll be a tough out in the playoffs once. I think Jimmy playing better will contribute to that. I think that Bam being healthy and back will play. I think Tyler, of course, is a big part of this team. And I think Highsmith is a very appreciatedly missed
They're
guy.
out 3 starters. That's crazy right now.
They're out 3 starters, and they're fighting for their lives every night, which should make sense because when you're normally in the NBA, when you're out 3 starters. And by the way, Kyle Lowry played yesterday. He was having back spasms before the game, and they don't have another point guard. So it's like, get in the Ava, Kyle.
What was he reading on that sheet when he was on the floor?
I don't know, man. Leif hates that guy. He's probably reading like the notes or something. I don't know. Probably matchup.
Was it a manga that he was reading?
A manga?
Manga.
I don't think Kyle reads manga. That would be cool if Kyle did read manga.
Would you like him even more than you do now?
Yeah, I would. I think so. Liking anime is weird because, there's liking anime and then there's like bad anime. It's like there's a lot of bad anime out there. A lot of people.
What's a bad anime?
I don't want to pit. No, I like Naruto.
Dragon Ball Z.
I don't want people in my chat to get mad. There's a lot of like bad, like Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is like a bad show, right? But people really like that, and it's like when people
Yu Yu Hakusho.
No, that's good.
One Piece. Did you watch the Netflix One Piece?
No, I've never seen One Piece, and I don't really have a lot.
What do you think about live action anime?
I don't really get why we got to make things live action. I don't understand this like craze to make something.
Do you hear that they're trying to make My Hero Academia live action?
Yeah, I don't really get the appeal. I think the one time I got it was Death Note. And I think that Death Note's such a like cornerstone of the medium that I kind of like other people's interpretation of Death Note. I think that like it was such a cultural moment in both the East and the West in like manga and anime that I just like different people's interpretation of Death Note, and I kind of like that they made it live action. The Simpsons did an episode. Like I
I saw
enjoyed it
that.
with Death Note, but for the most part, I don't like with Battle Shonen. I just think the special effects just make it look goofy, and I think that like when people make anime live action, it really just doesn't understand like why I think people like anime, and because it's supposed to like invoke this like feeling of like I've never seen something like this before, or this is so cool, or this is like it's supposed to play with your imagination in the most chuny and like grandiose way, and special effects will just never do that. And I just don't, it just doesn't totally work. Like even when you do like a romance anime that's like has nothing supernatural, there's something about the way that anime uses color and direction and camera that you'll never get with live action, and it just becomes a different story.
I don't know. Detective Pikachu really moved me.
Detective Pikachu is good. What fix that? G, what position do you play most in volleyball? I play beach. So if I played indoor, I would probably, I'm not tall enough to block, so I'd probably be DS. I never really played indoor volleyball a lot. If I did, I played in rec leagues where it didn't matter. But if I played serious volleyball, I am not tall enough to play in the front, and I cannot block. So that would be my problem. I'd probably have to be DS. In beach, I play fours in beach. I love playing outside hitter. That's like my favorite position. I love to fucking swing and hit the ball. And I serve really well. I hit the ball really hard. I like to set. I'm not very good at setting. Setting's like I have like days where I'll set great. I'm like the Kyle Lowry of setters. I'll have days where
What
I'm
does that
fucking
mean?
that I'll have days where it's like, oh my god, this guy's good. And then there's other days like this guy's never fucking played volleyball in his life.
Oh, that's what you mean.
That's what I mean. So indoor is fun, what Fix said. I do like playing indoor. Indoor is faster. I like playing beach because I like when points are longer. That's why I've always preferred like watching women's volleyball because the points are longer, and I think that that's cool. I think men's volleyball, it's too like it's really serve and volley. It's like you can serve, receive, and then like the run offense and the score. So I've always liked like longer points, and I think beach is fun for that because it's like it's more rallies. The points are longer. You get like pretty epic points. I think like indoor at like high end is like crazy because you can jump high as fuck and hit the ball really hard. I do love serving in indoor because I just do hit the ball hard. I'm not gonna do the thing where I'm not watching women's volleyball to be lecturous. I'm watching women's volleyball. I like it because like I love volleyball, and I just think it's like a more appealing sport to watch because like I said, men's volleyball, every point ends too quick. So no, I don't want to be lecturous. I want to make that clear for everybody.
How's your Achilles?
Good. I don't know why we're interviewing me now. The portion of the podcast. I don't have an Achilles
Have you
injury.
been talking to Aaron Rodgers yet?
It was a foot injury. It ended up not being my Achilles. My Achilles does sometimes feel sore when I play volleyball or do certain yoga things, particularly balancing on that foot in any yoga pose. I do feel it a bit, but other than that, I felt great. I've been able to play and run and jump and do everything. So for Chad that doesn't know, I had a bad foot injury like a couple of weeks ago. I literally could not walk. It
6
was
to
like
8 weeks.
It was pretty bad. I like literally at one point thought that I would not be able to run for months, and I thought that I had an Achilles injury. So yeah. So that's really
What do you want for Christmas?
I want a lot of things for Christmas. I really want a beach bag. I really want a beach bag. I was looking at these Bodhi beach bags. I want a bottomless portafilter. There's a lot of things. It's
Wait, what's
for
a
coffee.
bottomless port? Oh, for coffee.
For espresso.
Why do you think this was like a burrito for a second?
Chat says I want an HDMI cable. That's true.
That's great.
I want a Cuban link gold chain. I'm going to buy one for myself. I want a gold chain.
Where do you buy one of those from? Like David Yurman or?
I'm gonna go to Dadeland. I'm gonna see what's going on at Dadeland. I gotta be honest, and I don't want to do this. I have a $700 gift card for Costco, and I was like, maybe I can buy a chain at Costco. And I was like, that's too much of a dad move.
Yeah, you don't want the Kirkland signature one.
I got a rebate. I did some work in my house through Costco, and they gave me like a rebate in the form of a gift card. And so I have this gift card of $700, and I don't know what to use it on.
I feel like there's websites like Raise that will let you sell that gift card, for basically money, and you can just use that to buy either. I mean, you can use it to buy whatever you want at that point. So you can almost
Yeah.
like change it for
I thought of buying a watch
actual
because like
currency.
Costco has like some Belovas and like some like kind of like decent watches that I thought
They got
of, like,
Seikos. Seikos are
I-
pretty nice.
I don't think yeah, they have some Seikos.
Seikos. Is that how you pronounce it? I thought it was Seiko.
Might be. I don't know. I've always said Seiko.
Seiko. It might be Seiko.
Psycho. No, because
Psycho.
Psycho would be with an A.
It's a Japanese brand, right?
Yeah, Psycho. Psycho would be with
You
an
would know
A.
more than me.
Seiko. Yeah, like say something again. Yeah. So yeah. So that's it. That's kind of where we're at. I want a lot of things for Christmas, so thanks for asking. Nobody ever gets me what I want for Christmas. I know I'm a difficult shopper. People have told me I'm notoriously difficult to shop for.
What does Pat Riley want for Christmas?
Some caffeine to keep that man awake.